forget so easily, like the towers going down. I look at these kids and I do think there's millions of people in this country, and I don't think they really grasp what really could happen. Eventually, I think there may come a time when they're going to come over here. If we're overseas right now, then that means the terrorists aren't over here.
If I had my dream, everyone would know what Special Forces can bring to win the war on terror.
We face an unconventional threat in this country. It's going to take people with the maturity and the expertise to deal with it, not just violently, but through the whole spectrum of military operations. The premier answer to that threat is our unconventional warriors, and that is Special Forces.
We're trying to protect the United States. That's our goal. Because the last thing I want to see is another 9/11 incident. If terrorists are given the ability to conduct further attacks within the United States, and heaven forbid they detonated a nuclear device on U.S. soil, what's our response to that?
We have a very flexible, adaptive, motivated enemy that is capable of operating globally, small, decentralized ways, and we have to be able to do that as well.
We complement the conventional army, bringing the ability to think flexibly, fluidly, in a dynamic environment that is the GWOT, the Global War on Terror.
Clearly, there's a lot of great capability in the rest of the Department of Defense, but SF is uniquely suited to the unconventional fight.
A soldier who has more training, like a Green Beret does, is taught how to do a myriad of tasks in the qualification course that enable them to be a force multiplier on the battlefield.
And then we'll move away from the vehicles so that the enemy cannot come in and try and booby trap them while we are waiting for a recovery team to come.
As a force multiplier, one ODA works with indigenous troops to accomplish a mission. That takes 1 battalion of U.S. soldiers out of the fight.
When there is a visible enemy to fight in open combat, the answer is not so difficult. Many serve, all applaud, and the tide of patriotism runs high.
Where's that coming from?
But when there is a long, slow struggle, with no immediate visible foe, your choice will seem hard indeed.
When they come out of the Special Warfare Training Center on Fort Bragg, they're able to go to a 12-man ODA Operation Detachment Alpha, and they're able to train indigenous forces and move them into combat.
They go through a selection process designed to determine whether they can operate effectively, independently, and as part of a team, which is key.
197, 211.
Behind me are some of the people who volunteered to come through Special Forces, the selection and assessment. And we look for their intelligence, their aptitude. We are looking for the best of the best, that certain type of soldier that we know can perform without supervision.
A particular person is drawn to SF, and it's not the guy who wants almost solely to execute targets, find the enemy, kill the enemy. There is a remarkable thing about our men in SF.
One for the Green Beret in the sky! One for the Green Beret in the sky! One for the Green Beret in the sky!
Every single man on that ODA is truly an operator and able to do the most fundamental piece of combat. So even if you have a guy who's an 18 Delta who's also a medic, he is still a shooter. Everyone on the team is a shooter.
Yeah, we're shooters first, if need be, but at the same time, we're there to win the hearts and minds of the general populace.
Kasha Corps. Kasha Corps.
So we need the guy who can be a diplomat, but then be able to switch it on to, rather than teaching the role, now they have to eliminate targets. So we look for both aspects.
It's very, very difficult in a counterinsurgency environment. That level of maturity is what empowers SF, the ability to differentiate.
Have them both is what we're looking for, that whole man who can turn it on when he needs to and turn it off.
We work with a lot of dilemmas, issues that you're going to see overseas dealing with indigenous forces.
They gave me the basics to say, this is what you need to be looking at. Now that I'm here, I can take those things and apply them to the situation.
After they have taught you what to think in these scenarios, then we can start teaching you how to think, as we say, unconventionally.
Highly trained. Each A-team is 12 personnel, 2 officers and a master sergeant.
You're gonna be a special forces guy in like 6 months, you understand that? You're gonna have to be able to teach this stuff to indigenous forces all over the world.
And 5 different military specialties, weapons, heavy and light, communications, some of the most advanced communications you can take on a battlefield, an intelligence sergeant who concentrates on state-of-the-art intelligence acquisitions and analyzation tools.
Engineers who can assess infrastructure, medical sergeants who are just about medical doctors, pretty darn close. The only thing they're missing, in my opinion, is a diploma that says they're a doctor. The incredible things that our medics do.
Tell me if that cuts off, okay?
During the medical portion of it, it's like taking a 5-inch fire hose and force feeding yourself because there's so much information. The training we do is realistic. It really prepares you for what's to come once you actually are out in the field, you're doing your job.
We put out the best product in the military, if not in the world here. We give them the newest training. We take everything right off the street from Afghanistan and Iraq, and we try to incorporate that.
It's camouflage. You know, this is exactly what the guys in Iraq are getting.
It takes about 2 years for us to go through our training. So it's not like you can just say, okay, we're going to establish more special forces. It takes time. It's like investing.
Our guys are trained from the beginning in the different aspects of unconventional warfare.
Studying all the insurgencies throughout the world, whether it be South America, Eastern Europe, Africa, where all these insurgencies are going on. And the only people that have been doing that, and the only people that have focused on that, and the only ones that have schoolhouses designed to teach that is Special Forces.
With a Special Forces soldier, you get that human dynamic of being culturally sensitive. You're not going to get that $1 million battle tank to be culturally sensitive and to speak a foreign language.
فقدوا الجنود الثلاثة
على الجنود
والأحد الماضي
في العراق.
This is a people business, and you have to understand people, language, customs, culture. That's what we get taught.
معلومات
مكافأة.
They're very specialized, well-trained soldiers, have a familiarization with the language and the country in which they're operating.
The regional expertise gives us the edge, differentiates us from some of the other special operations forces.
So you're going to see a lot of awareness from years of experience of making these trips, all these deployments, and just staying in touch with the people that you meet downrange. He knows how to do it, he knows how to implement it, he knows what not to do.
One of the aspects that contributes to our survival is our low visibility, our ability to move around and among the local population with the aid of indigenous forces who are sharing the same goals and objectives that we have.
They have no problems rolling up their sleeves, working with the locals. They have dedication to the mission. They have the training, and they want to be challenged.
They're innovative. They have a tremendous amount of inner drive, want to go ahead and accomplish the intent of the commander on the ground. That small unit cross-trained so each man can do a portion of another man's job.
They can conduct combat operations.
We gotta get in that house!
As efficiently as they can conduct humanitarian assistance operations, and combine that having effects on the populace.
And we're able to really do both of them, you know, based on numbers, the 5 active duty Special Forces groups and the 2 National Guard Special Forces groups are the most cost effective.
And if they're looking for economy of force, then SF is the way to go, especially in the counterinsurgency. That's what we've historically done.
We've had a lot of experience in the Second World War in terms of unconventional warfare across the globe from 1941 to 1945.
Back to the Jedburgh teams, we organized resistance in occupied France. They saw a need for it at that time.
take advantage of the expertise that we have built into an organization since World War II, but formally since 1952, that was expanded in 1961 by the President of the United States.
And they had it right. You put the best and brightest with a little bit of good quality equipment, you give them a mission, you give them some broad guidance, and they will do good things, and that's why we're successful.
The hope in defeating terrorism and working with small elements, Special Forces can go in and do what needs to be done.
We can slip in unnoticed, do our jobs. We saw that using unconventional warfare in Afghanistan.
After 9/11, you saw an immediate, almost an instant deployment of Special Forces. It was done so well, so effectively, in such a short period of time that senior congressmen and senators took notice of that immediately and said, wow.
They sent Special Forces into Afghanistan, and within months, what all the pundits said would take years, Taliban was overthrown by Green Berets, walking through the country, advising, assisting, training, and fighting alongside the Northern Alliance forces.
Approximately 100 Special Forces soldiers, and roughly about a month to 2 months later, we had helped the Northern Alliance overthrow the Taliban. That speaks volumes about what Special Forces is capable of doing.
To show to the world what it is we're all about, working with these indigenous forces, and then we transition to starting to build a government.
We're chartered with standing up the Afghan National Army. Some of those guys are still there and are some of the senior ranking officers in the Afghan Army and still remember a lot of our guys.
I have worked with the same people since 2001. They're the same folks. I go and see them, and it's more like a reunion. You know, when are you coming back? We look forward to you returning. And that is a very, very powerful operational advantage that we have.
When we go back, we definitely have a personal relationship with the individuals that we're working with. And that goes from Karzai down to the local tribal leader. Our guys are spread out over 35 different geographical locations. Special Forces does the majority of the heavy lifting. All their operations are conducted by, with, and through the Afghan National Police and the Afghan National Army.
We always hear, how can they do this with 12 men? Well, the British asked one of our officers, I've got 1,000 men in my area, and you're making more of a difference there. How do you do it?
There's been significant contributions and development in Afghanistan. Elected a president, elected a parliament, all based on democratic principles, all operating within a Muslim culture. Very significant. Significant infrastructure development.
Special Forces understand the counterinsurgency fight. The American people have a right to know what successes are being executed on the ground. Special Forces has a strategy. We've been very successful in Afghanistan and will continue to have great success.
Because we are tied in with the culture and local leadership, we can analyze what's really going on here and what do we need to do to make Afghanistan a successful nation that's not going to be a breeding ground for terrorists like it used to be.
Special Forces conducting unconventional warfare tasks with host nation military, paramilitary, or police, ultimately much more successful and much more cost-effective.
Properly resourced and supported, you can put them anywhere and they will find a way to succeed. With 12 guys, if you resource them adequately, you can do more than 400, 600 guys.
So with 12 guys, you get a lot of bang for the buck. For a fraction of the cost, they can train a battalion to do the job that a battalion of American troops were doing. You can't get that with a platoon of tanks or a squadron of aircraft.
It's huge, and that's the way we operate. And when we can't operate that way, you know, it's tragic. But with 10, 12 guys, we're able to train a battalion, and we did 600-man operations with just 10 ODA guys.
Look at the track record. Anywhere that there has been predominantly unconventional warfare with SF working it, there's been a tremendous cost benefit. It comes back to the force multiplier. And we do that better than anybody. Not just regular Army, but even the other special ops. We understand it.
Special Forces achieve more. We do produce wonderful effects, especially in the ratio of manpower versus results.
And we operate in a manner that is conducive to success in these ambiguous areas, a part of the world where the book just doesn't work anymore. We were able to show the locals how to do it, bring them online, and with support from command, it's very little that we can't accomplish in this war on terror.
There's no such thing as a small kitten in an insurgency. No such thing. It will eat you alive if you're not organized to do it.
The war in Iraq is not a conventional war.
It's an insurgency we're fighting, and SF is
designed to do just that, to fight insurgencies, counterinsurgencies. If you want to see a change in the way American people are looking at this, then let's give them some success. It's critical for that conventional commander and that SF commander that they understand just what the one can do for the other, that they understand that from the very beginning.
We do a lot of enabling for them, establishing a direct relationship with Iraqi units and training them up to the level that we need them to be at. That helps conventional Army forces focus on security operations and in the long run to disengage.
Each ODA is trained to work with a host nation force that's of battalion strength, up to about 700 people. If there's 700 Iraqis conducting missions, maybe that takes 700 Americans and brings them home. Americans not in Iraq.
Our job is to get the Iraqi Army to work in conjunction with the regular Army. Once they build that relationship and see that the Iraqi Army can perform well under combat conditions, they usually request them back. And they're able to work beside them. Providing that link is vital. Stabilize Iraq.
When it works well, there is a symbiotic relationship between conventional forces and SF. We rely on conventional forces for that basic security role. Working the other way, we give the conventional forces tips that they would not otherwise get if we hadn't gotten that information for them.
The advantage that Special Forces has over the conventional Army or any other soft elements is we work in close proximity with the Iraqi Army or the Iraqi police force, and by nature of our language training and our skills, we get out and talk to the people a lot more often.
Gathering the intelligence, conducting direct action, we have knowledge of the area, the people, to go in and meet with those tribal leaders, to meet with the city council.
They're the ones that are going to know who is a bad guy, somebody that doesn't fit in. When you're fighting a counterinsurgency, it's important to establish security, take the bad guys off the streets in conjunction with their army and their police forces. We conduct missions in order to get aggressive against the enemy and take the fight to the enemy.
The Al-Qaeda incite this internal violence. A lot of the tribes are finally fed up with it because they're killing a lot of civilians. And they are actually willing to turn and fight. They just need someone to train and advise them.
Iraqi Army units are mixed. So seeing Iraqi Sunni and Iraqi Shia working side by side, that's just building a base for the future. It's just going to take some time for it to spread throughout Iraq. It's happening. These guys fight and die for each other. Bad guys are bad guys in the eyes of the Iraqis. They're targeting who is against the government of Iraq, whether it be Al-Qaeda, Sunni, Shia, and that's a positive point with the Iraqi Army.
Democrat, Republican, we're still going to be conducting training and conducting our area of responsibility. We're experts in the Middle East, and we're staying in the Middle East. That's what Special Forces, regionally oriented, does for the world, does for the U.S., and we got to maintain that.
Intelligence-driven operations, that's how we operate. Tells us what we need to do in terms of direct action missions, what we need to do in terms of indirect action missions.
Green Berets are definitely paramount in the intel gathering process. We have had great success.
A conventional force can't go out and acquire intelligence quite the way that a small, semi-innocuous force can.
Big forces are not able to get down into the nooks and crannies where a lot of the intelligence comes from.
A local commander can call down to that A-team and ask them specific questions about that area that he won't be able to acquire through unmanned aerial platforms or sensors. He would have to rely on first and second-hand reports from the population. Our guys are very good at acquiring that.
Conventional commanders tell us at every level that the most important thing that we do is the intel that we're able to collect that they do not have the capability and capacity to do.
SF guys traditionally think in a very different way. They do things that some would never even consider doing. You have to be sort of a think on your feet kind of guy at all times. And it's no surprise to me that we gather such an amazingly high percentage of that intelligence every day.
We produce 80% of all human intelligence that comes out of the Middle East from all organizations.
The most effective intelligence is human intelligence. That's what separates us from the crowd. An SF team is trained not only to talk to people, but then listen to them and bring that picture together and synchronize that. We do this better than anybody.
Gathering that information through fostering trust and a respectful environment with those local populations, really getting a lot of great information that other organizations will not.
Nothing can replace a guy that can gain access to a village on the side of a mountain in Afghanistan. There is no technological advancement that could go in and talk to a village elder. The children who don't know how to lie. And the women who will tell you what they think can only be done one way, with boots on the ground.
And there is a snowball effect about how intel can gradually get bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden it rolls into something that's very important. It's an ongoing process. It never stops. It absolutely never stops. And even the most seeming mundane detail, a lot of cases, adds up to something important.
We can base so many different operations off the intelligence we get. We can continue that snowball effect or that leapfrog effect and continue to get those key personalities. Never do you want to go in and just blow up a target.
A lot of targets do turn up a lot of good intelligence, and in the exploitation process is very important. We are definitely disrupting the network.
Getting into areas where other people can't get in and getting intelligence real time, being able to act upon it in a time-sensitive manner.
We action it almost immediately. If you don't action it right away, the intel picture will change. We're focusing on cell phones, computers, anything written, any kind of propaganda. We're looking at picking up video, CDs.
Start networking those plans together, putting names to faces, putting names to computers, and we can start breaking down those insurgent organizations and stopping their plans before they happen.
Intelligence drives the train. I mean, it has to.
My kids are what get me up every day to go to work, because my kids are my future. They're the future of this country. And I know if I'm not out there doing this job, that eventually they're going to have to do it.
A lot of the information that we get out of Afghanistan is directly tied to the United States. Guys that are in Afghanistan, guys that are tied to Iraq, that are planning things in Europe, that are planning things in America. And we would not have access to that information if we weren't there.
With Green Berets being on the ground overseas, we have had great success with electronic forensics. What that does is give us the ability to tie up those insurgent organizations. They cannot use that plan that they were going to do. Now they have to come up with another one. That takes a great deal of time. That takes a great deal of resources. That takes a great deal of financial support.
Political leaders and the American public as a whole need to recognize how important the intel gathering process is. It is not only putting those bad guys behind bars or killing them, but shutting down that entire network, preventing a devastating attack, another devastating attack on American soil.
In order to prevent such attacks like 9/11, we have to pay attention to intel that Special Forces teams are getting. Some of that intel is going to tell us what's going on in the United States.
We don't want the organization or the enemy to get at such a level that it starts flowing out of that country and into this one.
Our global deployment makes America safe. The best defense is a good offense. I mean, we're going out there and taking it to them in their home turf, project ourselves forward into these areas, root them out, and take them to task right there in these countries that we're in.
The deployment of Green Berets overseas protects the homeland to attack the infrastructures of these insurgent organizations, going after the planners, the financiers, and everything else that we're finding all over the country, whether it be from good citizens bringing us the information or finding it on target.
Maybe gathering intelligence that they put the dots together and they figure out, that there's a cell operating somewhere. It takes them off their game. It's like getting a linebacker into the backfield for a running back. It throws him off of his route. So once you get into their game, they have to change their tactics.
Go after them where it hurts them the most. Go over there and take these guys out where they're taught, where they're trained, and show them that we're not going to tolerate it.
Obviously, the ideal is to find out about these plots well in advance. It's a process that doesn't have an end in sight. It never has an end in sight. And since 9/11, it's not going to have an end in sight. And we need to understand that as a country.
Because of Special Forces' global footprint, we have the ability to gather intel where a lot of our other organizations do not. By staying in small units all over countries and in the outskirts, in the places that no one else wants to go, we gather intel that is securing America as well as those host nation countries.
It's a global effort now. It's just like, stomping out small fires. If you run over and stomp on one, there's another one smoldering behind you. You got to be able to cover down on all of them simultaneously. It needs to be countered equally across all the theaters, and that's the challenge right there.
We're spread out throughout the entire world. I think Global Scout is a good word for it. We go and train foreign militaries anywhere in the world.
And SF is great at that. We're the only unit of regimental size that has globally gone out and been able to execute from conflict operations to security assistance type actions from the Philippines, Africa, Eastern Europe in some cases, the Balkans.
So we're in all of these countries, 70 or so I believe at last count, and we're developing these relationships with these foreign countries and keeping insurgencies from even happening. And I think once senators, congressmen, senior military, political leaders look at that, they realize that it actually does make a lot more sense to have a smaller, more professional, better trained force that is designed and focuses on counterinsurgency.
Historically, Special Forces has been in South America for quite some time. Down in Colombia, the FARC is listed on the terrorist watch list. It is a concern of the United States government. Cocaine in Colombia helps them finance the terrorism.
They use the money they get from the drug business to buy weapons and equipment that they need to fight or help the Colombian army by providing them assistance, training, advice to combat the problem they have with drugs and narco-terrorism, to combat the guerrillas.
You talk to people in Bogota who really are so out of touch. No idea that the guerrillas walk into villages and kidnap children, make them soldiers. Now you start to see, they want to change. And I think you trip that back to SF guys spending time with the military down there and showing them that there is a different way. And if you can leverage that in other parts of the world, you might get the same results.
I saw it happen in El Salvador, Honduras, Colombia. Watch the final successes they have. It's very fulfilling. In Colombia, we've had a big impact.
Special Forces can influence our future and the future of these African nations by providing them military capability to better secure their regions and their borders.
We are learning a lot of skills. They are confident in themselves, taking our military to a higher level. At the end of this training, the soldier will have the basic skills to fight against the terrorism.
Stable African nations is in our best interest because it denies the terrorists safe havens for them to train and conduct operations from.
I'll build other teams around that Special Forces A team, put them in charge and put them in the lead like we've been doing in the Philippines. It's the force of choice and is the foundation for the indirect approach.
Once you can cause a division between the terrorists and their local population, that's when you start winning the counterinsurgency fight.
We've seen great stability in the piece that's really important, the sustainability. I really credit that to Special Forces, not SOF in general, but Special Forces in terms of getting the right forces there. There is a model that can be used and exported elsewhere. We would like to do a whole lot more with the Indonesian forces. So we look at it both geostrategically, geopolitically, two of the partners that we want to work with today and also well into the future.
We also have to recognize where we need to go to war and where we have to conduct operations in countries that we're not at war with. We don't have to be conducting operations in the Philippines the way we're conducting operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. Likewise in Colombia, likewise in the Pan-Sahel in Africa.
We have to be aware of what's going on in those countries that are friendly to us and minimize our footprint there in order to be successful. Otherwise, it's like a monster groping in the dark that can't find what he's looking for.
Provide them with assistance, helping their society, not just the military. Then they're less prevalent to have those terrorists there. They're more willing to root them out.
Continue doing what we were doing in the past, which is going to these small countries and training their military. They've got the motivation. They don't want their kids blown up. They want to go out and find these guys. They're tired of it. They're going in there to clean it up.
Trying to bring it into focus as to what the potential threat, what some of the challenges are. The demographics in Northwest Africa, in Southeast Asia are equally frightening in some cases. If you've got a huge population, largely uneducated, it certainly provides a lot of the ingredients for these sort that we see flock into Afghanistan and Iraq. Easily influenced, taught nothing but hate and violence in pursuit of these worldwide domination goals.
This global war on terrorism, we don't know what the next country is down the road. And if we're not committing to establishing special forces to deal with this, then we're setting ourselves up for failure. And the country is going to suffer for it.
Where this will go, there's a lot of speculation, but it is truly a worldwide phenomenon. It'll continue to proliferate in various forms.
We need to make sure that we have a plan that is far-reaching, that's 10, 20 years down the road, that's looking at special forces and saying, okay, this is what special forces has done for us currently. We need to reinforce their success.
We meet with the indigenous forces, meet with the local population, integrate into their goals, which are tied into the ambassadors' goals of that country.
We're in so many nations now, we're in so many regions right now, because all the diplomats, all the ambassadors, all the people up in Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Africa, in the Middle East, they all know what we can do. We have people requesting us all the time to come over there and train their soldiers up. They all know our capabilities. They know who we are.
The ODAs, they just want to get it done, and they love being the warrior diplomat who's engaging the local politician, who's living with the locals, who's eating the local food, who understands their culture, who understands their language, and that's a very unique characteristic. That's a strength of ours.
A lot of the world may have a skewed vision of what an American is. And it's going to be that interaction with that Green Beret, working with them, talking to them, and letting them see what America's all about, which will change their way of thought. You have to change people's perspective of what the United States is.
The diplomatic part of Special Forces sets us apart. The ability to relate to foreign people, officials, military, get them to trust you so that you actually can help them. Sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds to get someone to trust you who's from a completely different environment and halfway around the world.
An SF guy has maturity, has the experience to do that. He's worked with everyone from the regular soldier out there in an allied army all the way up to briefed ambassadors. Wherever part of the world that they're sent, whether it be Thailand, whether it be South America, they understand the situation, what's going on down there.
We have our finger on the pulse so that when something's going wrong, we can facilitate getting rid of the problem without risking a large number of American lives. Assess the situation and get a really good, accurate read on what's going on without really attracting a whole lot of attention to ourselves.
And what you find out is that after multiple trips, those people that you worked with that were captains are now majors, colonels, generals. So now you have someone in the higher up who understands what SF brings to the table, who also has a personal interest because they know you. And that goes a long way.
You engage the country, you continually rotate detachments through there over the course of several years. You build that rapport, you provide them assistance.
You are the good guys. You can make their lives better, defeat the propaganda that the bad guys are putting out there. Show them that everything that they've heard about you is a lie.
To talk with our host nation counterparts, be it Iraqis, Jordanians, or Filipinos, wherever we are in the world, gives us a significant advantage to build trust, build bonds that help us to fight against terrorists that are seeking to harm either them or Americans.
Green Berets are so important in the global war on terror because we have learned, studied, read, and all of our training is focused on small unit fighting against insurgents and guerrilla organizations. We have the ability to teach indigenous forces how to fight those enemies that will not take you head on.
We do focus on foreign internal defense, the training of foreign forces, and that is the way you defeat counterinsurgency.
Unconventional warfare, the ability to deal with a foreign population, understand their culture, train them to manage themselves and defend themselves. We're the preeminent organization that was created to do that.
The population is the focus in any counterinsurgency operation. What SF does is we embrace that. We go out and we focus on building the population and encouraging them to fight the insurgents, to fight the terrorists.
have an ability to conduct direct action missions. But most of the time, be able to establish rapport with the locals, be able to work by, with, and through the host nation to conduct operations. That's what you need to be successful.
You don't really want to be chasing bad guys all day and upsetting the general populace, because then that's two battles that you got to fight, and they could get ugly real quick.
We're able to achieve that dynamic with the people. You cannot win a war without the support of the populace. And we learned that in Special Forces under the auspices of unconventional warfare.
They can help us do the fighting, not housing terrorists and not supporting terrorists, and that's half the battle anyway, you know, because if they can't get the support of their people, then we're winning.
How do we do that? Where we're going to best affect the enemy and best affect the populace. Surrounded by the populace, surrounded by the enemy. You got to be in those positions, okay? That's what Special Forces is all about. Integrate into that all aspects of security forces, the government, the village leaders, the people. We bring them in, we build a clinic. One of the first things we do. And then we develop a plan to expand our security. We do assessments, we start building rudimentary roads, putting in wells. We do all of these things very quickly and rapidly because we're very decentralized.
SF guys understand that. If you put that new well in the village, you inoculate their animals so they live longer, you provide medical care for their children, people will see that you know, the Americans actually do have a heart.
And when you do all this, then you have affected the populace, you have affected the enemy, and you're legitimizing the government. So you're having that positive effect that you need to have on the people, but also you are creating an environment that's going to end up being hostile to the enemy insurgent. You've turned that passive population, and they come in and they give you information against the enemy that you need to have. You get information on where the enemy safe havens are, and you can go attack those safe havens.
Remove terrorists and bad guys from those areas so that the local leadership can then come forward and accept the humanitarian supplies without that threat of fear and intimidation that a lot of insurgent terrorist organizations try to impose on people.
Intimidation is what generally gets people to cooperate, letting their sons or daughters participate in enemy activities or giving money or food to the enemy. We can provide a presence. It gives them more security, a sense someone else is out there besides just the bad guys.
Two things, removal of the immediate threat and the improvement of their lives. There's just something that happens, then they can start to stand for themselves and they can resist the outside forces that have other plans for them.
You have to set the conditions where their family will be safe, where their family will have food on the table, where they don't have to worry about their unemployed kids getting talked into being suicide bombers.
And being able to have the people's skills to motivate them, to get them going in the right direction to accomplish the same goal is really what sets us in front of everybody else.
Essentially, it's like making a neighborhood watch through training their militaries, training their militias, and teaching them the skills they need to fight off those insurgents. We enable those people to take care of themselves.
And you see guys doing it day in and day out in Afghanistan, Iraq, Northwest Africa, and it works. It really does.
The only way you can win this thing is by changing the perception and the thoughts of the people in that country. You have to make their life better.
And there is that hope. Finally, someone can show me there is a better life available.
Understand intuitively that you must make contact with the people. You must understand what their needs are first.
We help rebuild, or we help with their water supply, we help get them medical supplies, we help with food, and they turn around and they see that we are there to help them.
I get to see that we're not such bad people. I mean, we're trying to educate the people. We set up a school, we teach them basic reading and math skills.
We come with humanitarian aid to keep the peace, and that brings them back to the base. Just basically hold sick call for the villagers that need it.
There's something very special about medicine that is different from other construction projects, from food, from improving the area. A lot of cultural barriers will come down, a lot of religious barriers will come down. It provides them a totally different perspective.
As a medic, I'm trained in everything from veterinary, dental, trauma, life support. I have a local clinic where within 200 miles I may be the nearest thing to a doctor. We could diagnose all types of different diseases and be able to treat those.
He's doing a good job. And I really feel for your children. I have a lot of compassion for people that are hurt. I try to, I guess you could say, see with my heart, all right? And these people receive my very best.
We provide aid to your brothers, fathers, mothers, sisters, sons, daughters, livestock as well. We're just providing a service that goes well beyond anything that they've ever had in their lives.
After the first family member we treat, usually the next day they're back with their whole family and we're helping the family, and then the family goes out and tells their neighbors, and soon the word spreads that we're there to help. They trust you. They're giving you information because they feel like you're there to help them more than the people that are trying to fight against us.
And that's how we build that trust, and we build that peace to say, hey, Americans, they're not bad. What are all these guys talking about? And that's what it takes.
Winning the hearts and minds of the people through all these indirect actions that we do in countries, whether it be providing medical support, construction, providing veterinary support, teaching them how to read. We give them the ability to say, hey, the insurgents are killing us, using us as a propaganda tool, but they're not really giving us anything. Special Forces guys are here on the ground with us, living with us. They're eating our same food, and they are taking care of us.
Good to go. This one is goes with the water, right? Yes.
We are trainers, yes, and we do it well, better than anybody.
Teaching the locals mission planning, military skills. Benefits are that soon this Army will be self-sufficient. They will be able to defend themselves instead of having an American face on what's going on.
There's such a huge difference for a local villager to see that Afghan face. They realize, hey, you know, this guy is one of us.
We inherently go to fight and we plan on training our replacement. And that's what makes us different, leaving and having someone there that we trained that can continue the fight.
Indigenous forces doing it on their own. That's the end state, is to be able for them to fight it on their own.
A safe, stable area that has people that we trained that now pull the job of the Army to secure that country.
Working with the indigenous people, you're just out there alone, and if you don't have the good rapport, the good training, and the ability to make the mission happen, it just doesn't work.
With Special Forces, there's a desire to do it. Generally speaking, conventional forces do not desire to train foreign forces. Most of the other special operations community does not. We as Special Forces soldiers do, and we realize that it is probably the most important thing we can do in the current conflict.
As an SF soldier, you interact on a very personal level in a lot of ways. You're training a guy, you're teaching a guy how to shoot, he's relating to you things about what he does on a daily basis, his family life and so on. The SF guys become immersed in that culture because that is our job.
Learning to work with the different countries and the different armies is something that you really need. People who haven't done it just don't build that bond, but most indigenous forces don't respond to the drill sergeant mentality.
We become very familiar with the little nuances to training them. In between deployments, we do a lot of professional development ourselves, where we go to various schools to develop our skills.
An SF soldier is going to appreciate how important that is to understand who it is that he's working with, fighting alongside, talking to, training on a daily basis. It's difficult to put into words, but having done it, I can tell you that it's extremely important and it's absolutely vital for what we're doing right now.
Special Forces, yes, needs to grow. The battalions need to grow. We need organic indirect fire assets, organic rotary wing assets, our own helicopter transportations.
Until we start to grow Special Forces or to change the doctrine to reflect the enemy that we're fighting, I don't think we're going to be as successful as we can be in the global war on terror. We start in trying to transform our thinking and not just our equipment.
After 9/11, there was a lot of talk about transformation, bringing up SF, because we have that capability of unconventional warfare. Essentially wrote the book on it.
Special Forces is more relevant than ever with the global war on terror. It's just the abilities of the ODA to get into these areas.
We need to combat the threat. We have to grow to meet the threat. We have to be proportionate to the threat.
To fight against terrorists or insurgents, you need to have a very reactive force that is able to adapt and learn, change quickly. Large organizations have a difficult time doing that.
We're able to move and turn quicker. Battleship turns, but it takes time. But a smaller boat will turn really quick. And that's where I think we bring to this fight. They're changing their tactics constantly, and it's easier for a small organization to adapt.
But the bottom line is unconventional warfare. There's already an infrastructure that exists that supports that, called United States Army Special Forces Command, who are truly the experts.
As we move forward into the 21st century, other countries understand they can't defeat our big army. So they're going to try to move around the battlefield in small elements. America needs SF to go to these wars because the enemy is fighting in an unconventional way. And the people that can fight with them is unconventional warfare trained soldiers, which is Special Forces.
We're a military organization that has a specific capability and capacity that is very qualified for this type of warfare, that is not being used to its maximum benefit.
Your name shows up on my list, man.
We need a strategy that is nested to get the effects that you need. So you're doing all these tactical operations, very decentralized, down to the lowest level of command. We need special forces officers commanding at levels in which we influence this war. There's got to be an overall counterinsurgency strategy. There's got to be a plan for special forces to be put in the places where they need to be to have maximum effectiveness in this war on terrorism.
Well, I think everyone's so pumped up about this high-tech warfare, just push a button, drop a bomb, the problem goes away. Well, not all the time, Sometimes you just caused a bigger problem by dropping that.
Obviously, launching cruise missiles and dropping bombs everywhere is not an effective way to combat terrorism. You have to put troops on the ground, and you have to give those guys the right resources.
Terrorism is spiking all over the world. Looking globally, it is spreading fast, and the need for more unconventional troops, special forces, is growing daily. Africa, everywhere in the Middle East where fundamentalism is just catching fire, there's going to be a need for more special forces.
Go in there with training, funds, and equipment. They can handle those problems in those countries where those terrorists are operating.
It's not going away. It's everywhere, and it's not going to go away. We need to be able to go into these countries and work with indigenous forces to quell these insurgent cells, these terrorist cells all over.
There are civilian leaders out there that do understand it. They know the right answer because when they need an immediate answer, that's the answer they use. They sent in special forces.
The global war on terrorism, that's our greatest threat right now. We need to continue to build up special forces and establish policy that gives us the tools that we need.
Really see the fact that we are the most viable tool in executing the global war on terror.
Get unconventional forces, SF teams, at the forefront of this effort. That's the key right there. The political leadership is concerned with protecting the American people, protecting their own families, along with that, the families of every other American.
We need to rely on our civilian leadership to establish the strategic goals necessary for this long war and allow our generals to put together the best plan possible to achieve that.
Why would we only have one division, or less than a division equivalent, of unconventional warfare fighters? It just doesn't make sense. It's not that easy. So it takes time, it takes support at higher levels to make this happen.
Nobody wants to see American soldiers die in combat. I've lost, a half dozen good friends over there.
It's war. People are going to get shot. People are going to get killed.
I'm not going to let the people that I work with down. And this is the job that I've chosen. Every man that we've lost, this is a patriot. They've made the choice to put themselves on the line for freedom. I believe in this country and what we stand for.
We know what the loss of life is. We know what it takes to have the will and determination to fight this enemy. We want to continue the fight and keep the fight over there.
I see my sons, and when I leave, I just hope that in the future for them, they don't have to fight this war. They don't have to worry about terrorists coming to this country to take out their families.
Harming Americans, people like my parents or my wife or my friends.
For them to have a society where they can still have their freedom and live in freedom. And that's what makes me put on this beret and fly overseas and do what I need to do.
I see the sacrifices every day. The men I work with pay the price every day. When we deploy, I leave my family.
Men who mean just what they say.
But I really understand what we're up against and what the costs are. If we're not securing this country, everything else is going to fall apart. We got to have that so we can remain the country that we are.
We bring hope. Just let us do what we've been training to do. Swing this back in our favor.
We're the protectors of the United States. We're the ones that need to be out there at risk. Special Forces focusing on counterinsurgency. The global war on terrorism, this is our fight. This is what we're trained for. So that's what we signed up for. We just need people back home to understand that we're committed to it and we want to be successful and be victorious.
Look at the successes and understand what we bring to the table. At the end of the day, we'll be looking at what works and what doesn't. Realize that we're definitely the weapon of choice, Special Forces, into the future, and make it the best that it can be.
They'll test one day, have him win the Green Beret.
They have the capability and they have the will to come over here and do a lot of damage. And a lot of people don't see it because it's not in their face.
I think we got complacent. You know, people forgot what actually happened on 9/11. If we can think back on the initial invasion in Iraq and Afghanistan, what were we doing that was successful back then? Well, we had special forces in there with indigenous forces taking it to these cells.
You got to look at what results they've achieved. I mean, why not give yourself as much advantage as you can? You know, you've got these incredibly trained guys who want to go out there, do their mission to the best they can.
I think we bring hope if we would just let the gloves come back off, turn loose the special forces, let the gloves come off, and let us do what we've been training to do.
We know as a force that we're going to be there for the long haul in some form or fashion. And so we have a vested interest in that area. It's not advantageous for us to have a bunch of terrorists running around.
The missions we do can't all be focused towards what some people would call the softer humanitarian type, because the security in the areas we operate has to exist in order for people to feel safe and benefit from some of the humanitarian stuff that we can be involved in.
You'll still have your direct action. You're gonna get intel. Intel will come down a lot. You get your intel from the local people. So your indirect actions would sometimes lead to direct action.
The best way to describe it is it has to be balanced, because the effect that you get on the population is the greatest if it's balanced. So there's always a need for more direct combat reconnaissance patrols and things that remove terrorists and bad guys from those areas. One of the things that makes us unique is the ability to assess an area.
So through these two ways, we are definitely protecting the American people by keeping them busy in the fight with the American forces and the coalition forces, and standing up the Iraqi forces and the Afghanistan forces that now they are going to be taking the fight to them. They are inundated with fights, with tasks that they have to take care of before they can take care of their global planning for future attacks.
This is the way we need to be fighting this war. It's a combination of direct and indirect approach, and we have the subject matter expertise within our ranks in order to do that. You know, when we look at future threats to our nation, you know, we have to consider this, and then we have to look further out.
For Special Forces, we generally don't look at it as a country approach. We look at it as a regional approach, and look at, you know, Iran and Iraq and Syria and Jordan and you know, Afghanistan, not as a bunch of different problems, but as the collective, you know, problem set. And we need to approach it in a manner befitting that.
We have to really take a look at what old vestiges we have within our system and what isn't functional. And people got to get out of their comfort zone. They have to step out of the box. There are so many ways that we could be integrating it for better effect at all levels and getting the right subject matter expertise in the places where they need to be.
The Department of Defense needs to look at the whole war on terror like that. We can't sort of compartmentalize these different events, because that's just not possible. And, you know, this form of warfare, I mean, it's got to be a comprehensive approach.
But without an overall strategy, without the right forces, task organized the right way, it's going to be business as usual. I would tell you it doesn't have to be that way. Where we apply it and how we apply it across the globe must change and have that effect in the counterinsurgency environment, unconventional warfare environment that you need to have.